Muchachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a wonderful music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. I'm PD Rave, and here with me is my team, my squad, my triumvirate. We've got David Majors, aka DJM.
Buenos tacos, muchachos, and I'm putting something up on the video to give a shout out to the OGs that know.
Exactly. And over on the other end, we got Drew Snyder. Drew.
Hey.
Hey, Steve. We're here to talk about music. We're talking about an album. And we're going to talk about an album that I kind of like chose somewhat blindly. Like I said last week, it's an album that was in a little stack of albums in my Spotify library that I like to call the hastily saved albums while looking at TikToks where they that recommend albums and music. While pausing and things like that. And I decided to kind of pick one that seemed to kind of have like a sound that would be intriguing. And I chose Portland, Oregon, indie folk and more group project La Bamba. It is the group that is primarily driven and done by singer-songwriter Lucha Mendoza, and they have like collaborators with them as well, and kind of writing music, like very like indie mellow music, about being a first-generation Mexican American. So like I was intrigued, a first-generation child of immigrants. Wait, you could say I have a connection to that, but yeah, let's talk about expectations from you guys. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I hate this question so much. Literally no idea. Absolutely no clue. But that's why I like being on this podcast. PD Rave has a tendency to bring things onto the podcast that are often socially conscious, LGBTQIA plus friendly, and very self-explanatory, saying exactly what it is on the tin. So I expected someone bearing their soul in the music, not to the point of being uncomfortable, but still very real, if you will.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
More wrestling than I got. But I also expected not to be able to understand the lyrics, but was hoping that wouldn't hinder my enjoyment. Because I looked at the name of the band, and then I looked at the bulk of the titles, and I figured this was going to be mostly in the language that I did not understand. But I was excited nonetheless, because usually with PD, that doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy the record.
Yeah. I was, and I'll even speak on my expectations because again, I was kind of coming into this a little bit blind myself. I wasn't sure exactly what we were gonna get because I expected Latina rhythms, like Mexican music styles that kind of come in there. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was probably kind of like maybe something worldly, but I was curious. And how I would just describe this album musically is definitely like mellow indie music, made with a ton of influences from like Latina themes and influences. Like it's a primarily very like lo-fi indie style, but that brings a lot of stuff from like as like you can see on the Wikipedia or on the Pitchfork review, which I'm not as well versed in Mexican music, so I kind of like go to the Pitchfork review and the Wikipedia for like the sightings. So this is where I'm getting it from, but like mariachi, corridos, rancheras, música azteca. They also talk about boleros and huapango songs as far as like the influences for Luz in their music style. And it's definitely finds all those elements in there. There's very like it's very almost ethereal sound. It's very like floaty. It's very lo-fi. It definitely sounds like something you would hear on your local college radio, like I would hear on my WVUM for University of Miami college radio. Shout out them. But it's there's very like these like I almost want to call tingly guitars, like splingy or tingly. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just kind of feels like the word that makes sense in my head for that. It's very like odd there, but like it also incorporates things like wonderful Latin percussions, wonderful like congos and like and things like that. It also incorporates some really nice like horn elements every once in a while, and it creates this like almost dreamlike like feel and soundscape throughout the record, but while still having these like moments. It's definitely like kind of being in a certain headspace, and then like the themes of the album is very much a personal record of Luz and their personal journey, being a first gen Mexican American, being of Chicana identity, being queer, being non-binary, things like that. But it's very like does it in very poetic ways and doing like a very like using certain like poetic elements, covers, indie sounds, even a little country like yeah, and it does it well. Let's go into you guys. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as sort of a dream pop rock album. Very spacey, very atmospheric, and also very, very human. The singer does not leave any emotion unturned, and it is all very, very authentic. That there is nothing here that doesn't seem forced or artificial.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
This has got to be one of the most like soothing records we've had on the podcast for a long time. There's, like I said, the words themselves right over my head. But the music itself, it's reserved at times. But there is still some like really, really like good instrumentation. There's a feeling almost of like yearning and longing throughout the entire process, which reading and hearing the background of this makes a lot of sense. The percussion by, I'm gonna possibly butcher this, is a bow? I'm not sure which way you would pronounce that. But the percussion is just enough to keep the rhythm and be interesting without being like overpowering to the whole vibe of the record, which I guess is kind of the thing. It's a very vibes record, and it has all the bits of like lo-fi and vaporwave I can dig, just in a slightly different package and milieu. You're dealing with that, like, at times it was very much going into that, like, almost like you're right about to go to sleep, hypnagogia point that I've said before, but like I've never heard that in this package. I'm used to it coming in a much more electronic like package, which I think that's kind of cool that we're getting that with like more musicians and real instrumentations using like the things people are finding interesting in the lo-fi and vaporwave sort of movements, but let's put them on actual things and see what happens.
Yeah, and like one of the things about the language of the album is that it flows seamlessly, even in songs or from song to song, from English and Spanish, kind of like, you know, which is very fitting for somebody who has maybe grown up first gen Latina, like you know, first Latina American, like you know, kind of like you grow up, your household is in Spanish, you're maybe your family, but like you're living in America, you know, it's like that, all of that kind of mixes together, and like, you know, the Spanglish of it all. And getting into some of the songs, it kind of starts with it starts off with like, as we get into the key tracks, we start off with like the with 8, which is kind of a nice little like dreamlike epilogue, almost kind of like welcoming you into the albums, you know, like in like almost like trying to draw you in very siren like, kind of like into the album. And then it like smoothly goes into like Dibujos de mi alma, which is sketches of my soul, or sketches of my spirit, or drawings of my spirit, you know, things like that. That's what it would say. It is very like, you can see that lo-fi feel. The guitar has this like nice like I said, plingy or tingly, and like this reverb thing going on, while like they have these really nice like Latin rhythms, like with the percussion going in the background, but still kind of like having this little bounciness, but while still being kind of ethereal. And then like with the nice like horns just kind of coming in like just at the right moments, like just kind of, you know, entering in, piercing through right at the right moments, and a nice little like strong flourish finish. You get a song like Hughes, which is a nice little like bringing a guest artist, Devendra Banhart, and his vocals, and kind of like having in a beautiful like duet vocals, and that whole like the harmony that they put together is really nice in there. We have a cover on this. We have a Hank Williams Sr. cover on this album, with "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," which comes out of nowhere, but is this like beautiful, you know, low minimalist cover, minimalist and sublime. Just the guitar and a little bit piano, just, and the voice, Luce, their voice is just fantastic in this, and it all shines through, and you can feel like the emotion. It's almost like very like, almost like somebody thinking back to like, you know, records they listened to in their childhood, and just like singing along. And a song like Ceniza, which is ash in Spanish, by the way, has this very like nice like AM radio intro, which is very like interesting, with like the little horn, and then just kind of goes into this like these beautiful percussions, and this really beautiful percussions, and the rhythm that support like this really like nice wispy, lovely tones that kind of like just float throughout, and just kind of get you swimming along, and maybe draw a little like, I even drew like a little like ocean with a cactus in the middle of the ocean. I don't know. I just kind of like, I drew that while I was listening to this.
You were inspired.
Yeah. I was just doodling in my thing, because and it was just like this feel that it gave me. But yeah, David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The second track, Dibujos de mi alma, it sort of rose above the general vibes of this album, the dreamy, floaty indie pop vibes. It had some horns that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the percussion, because it kind of came to the forefront which it doesn't do a lot of on this album. And track 2 in particular was probably the standout track for me. Dibujos del mi alma.
Drew, what will be some of the key tracks for you?
So for me, the beginning of this record, 8, there's a uke and some dreamy vocals, and like just the lightest of piano. That was automatically the relaxing part. Hues, which Hues for me, I put that in a different time and place. This would be a background band on the Love Boat. Like it has that sort of like just slightly different world feel. And then Walk Along, ending the album with possibly my favorite bass part of the entire thing. I think it was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whiny ass dog behind me trying to get onto a bed.
I mean, dog's gonna dog. Yeah. Let's bring it back around the horn. Let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what would be your conclusion at the end of the day? What would be your conclusion on this album?
Normally I am able to put myself in a headspace to enjoy some kind of dreamy, atmospheric kind of music. I can get into that headspace and sort of vibe out when I need to. That didn't really happen for me with this album. It really didn't. By the time I got to track 8, Ceniza, I felt my attention kind of starting to drift away. It wasn't until track 10, Más Menos, where there was a really nice piano solo, that I got engaged again. My one big knock on this album was that it felt like it was at the same speed from start to finish. There was really no kind of changes in the flow on the album that I could really latch onto. It just kind of felt like it was going at one pace the whole time. And even in like dream pop or atmospheric music or vaporwave, they'll change up things a little bit just to keep the listener interested. And this really didn't do that for me. I ended up drifting off and my attention wandered. I don't love how this album is mixed. I felt like the drums were way too far in the back, and the tingly guitars that Petey was talking about, I thought were fine, but I think it kind of drowned out everything else. Vocally, I would have liked to have heard less reverb and less distortion. And I just think that the album had a floaty feeling, which I know was the intent, but I ended up just kind of floating away from it, and it did not hold me.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album?
I have never really like I can recognize dream pop, but I've never really felt dream pop, if that makes any sense. When I've listened to it, I've never gotten the dream part of it. This did hit that for me in a cool way. It is something where I liked listening to it. I liked having it on in the background of work. I liked going through and like picking out the songs. But I can't tell you if I like the moments I picked out and the tracks I picked out. I had to think of what I was picking, because like David said, it kind of melds together in a lot of ways. Where I don't know if I will remember any of them, if that makes sense. I'd put it on again, but I can't tell you why, which feels broken. But,
yeah, it makes sense. My conclusion is very similar to a lot of things. I really liked it most of the time. And I would say I liked it most, and I don't mind, like, I don't mean it from a percentage of album, but more of a percentage of personal experience from multiple listens. Like, most of the time I was enjoying it, but not always. Sometimes I felt it's very like floaty, it's very ethereal, and it's nice, but it does, like Dave said, go at just like one pace, very slow. Even like when it kind of like picks up a little rhythm, it's mostly just like a, just like a little do do do. And it doesn't have a lot of high dynamics, but that's the point. It's very lo-fi, and that's the point in the style it's going for. And ultimately, I think it's a thing of like one listen, I was like, this is nice, but I kind of like want to just do something else. And other listen, I was like, yeah, I'm into this headspace. I'm like doodling on my sketch, my little sketchbook. I'm, feeling the vibes. And it's like, you have to be in a certain place and a certain mood to want to get into this. Which is, it's fine. It's a record for a time and a place and a mood and in motion. I think there are obviously parts where it could have been better and executed better, but I wonder if, like, it's hard to decipher, okay, what's a miss, or what's something that we think was a missed target, but was actually just them nailing on their attention on the head. And it's just, we kind of like, it's a difference in like expectation. So I think ultimately, kind of taking this at face value, it's a really nice record. It was nice to kind of like be able to like pull it out of like this like collection I have of records that I wanted to check out. And I, like always, even when I'm picking my own albums, I love kind of like broadening my horizons and just stretching out where I'm at with music. So, you gotta stretch, you gotta like tear your muscles for them to grow. So you gotta tear out your expectations.
No, that's not how that works.
You have to like, it's the muscle fibers, and then they heal and you get bigger.
I mean, you don't tear them. You work them out. It's micro tears.
Exactly.
A little bit at a time.
Exactly. And this was a nice little experience at a time, and I love diving into all that. So ultimately, this was a nice experience. It's a experience and an album that it fits certain moods and certain mindscapes, not all of. So something to think about when you go into it, but I think it's worth at least trying out and checking out, because it might be exactly what you're looking into, especially if you listen to college radio.
College radio is how I discovered prog rock, so you never know.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, those are our thoughts. Those are our conclusions. Now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Haiku Reviews. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. I also forgot to mention, lucha means struggle or fight, if anybody wasn't aware, which is why, it makes sense. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
Laid back indie pop. No lo odie, pero es aburrida.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Didn't do that. Lovely, dreamy voice, drifting to relaxation, well thought out and tight.
My haiku: a lo-fi approach y sonidos latine combinan just right. And those are our thoughts on Lucha.
How'd I do, Petey? How'd I do?
You did all right. You did all right. I'd have to see it written down. But you did all right. You know, pronunciation is the hard part.
It is. It is.
You know, kind of like making your. I always need to give people grace on, like, you know, you have to change your approach.
Rolling the R in there was a little tougher than I expected.
Yeah. It's it would be like no lo odié, because that's where that accent is. Odié, pero es aburrida. I think the tricky part is the odié.
Yeah.
Like, it's because that's where the accent is. The accent tells you where to emphasize. But yeah, those are our thoughts on Bamba and the album Lucha. You can, of course, check it out on our Spotify playlist. Also, check it out on their Bandcamp. I gotta remember to put this in. I think the Himmelbacken album also. I gotta put the Bandcamp link as well, so you can support them more directly. Check out the album. On that Spotify playlist will be the next album, and it's going to be provided by David. David, what have you got for us?
All right, Petey, I figured out a new mechanic. All right, so I'm walking up to the mound. All right, I've done my warm-up. My foot's on the rubber. Petey, I'm looking in for the sign. What's the pitch? What do you want?
You're the two inside.
That's a 2 inside. Okay. I just discovered this artist today, and I was absolutely enraptured. I really have no other word for it. She is very unique, really talented, and I hope more people find out about her. I am talking about Nao Yoshioka and her album Undeniable.
Yes. No. Oh, I got a hiccup there. Nao Yoshioka and her album Undeniable. Yes. Yeah, look forward to that. But that'll be next time. And this is now. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Play Record Breakers at Home Game on our Spotify playlist, which you can find on our show notes at rebelli.net or recordbreakers.fun. Rebelli TV on YouTube as well. We also have all the, on the YouTube descriptions. Go ahead and subscribe, watch on our video. You can also go find us everywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I don't know. Did they kill Google Podcasts? I don't know.
I think they did. They did.
Yeah. I think Apple Podcasts is still alive, or iTunes. Just the RSS feed is also on our website, so just take it and go wherever you can get an RSS feed reader. Also, you can catch us live at Rebelli TV on Twitch. Watch this podcast as well as our other podcast / WWE 2K23 My GM mode playthrough. That is us being GMs of different shows that are not WWE because we modded the game, while also basically hosting a millennial lifestyle and wrestling podcast at the same time while one of us is booking. So look forward to that. That's live there. Also on our web, YouTube, and other stuff, including what we got coming up for Through the Tomes and all that stuff. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Oodle toot.
Find Luke.
Annyeong.
Live logs and proper.
Fighting.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.